The basic idea of designing the 4-week-long Strong Start program is to give a proper base foundation for our students. This is a complete mix. So once they are done with this 2 weeks of soft skill module, they'll start a core academic training wherein they are learning to use Canadian learning systems so that at the end of this entire module, they are prepared to be a university student.
Welcome to the podcast, listeners. Today we have with us Miss Neha Bansal, who is a professor of French at Alliance Française Chandigarh and here at Fraser Valley, India. You're also an author and a trainer with the Association of Indian French Professionals and Researchers and Langues. How are you doing today?
Thank you for calling me. I'm very well, thank you.
We actually know each other from, like, we work together here at Fraser Valley, India. But I first met you when you were my professor. I think I'm not certain, but I believe it was at B1 and also at B2. I think we did 2 different courses.
It seems so, yeah. And the only thing that I remember was that you were a very good student. So, yes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I remember that you were a very good teacher. I had a great time in all of your classes, and you really helped me. I don't know, be motivated about learning French for the sake of learning French rather than for any extrinsic reasons. I felt like you really like the language. I feel like you really enjoy learning and teaching the language. And I think that was the emotion in the classroom. And so I had a genuinely great time learning with you. I want to know how did your journey in French begin? Is this something that you had always wanted to do when you were younger? Were you exposed to French through your parents? What was your first exposure to French?
Well, I love talking about it though. So, I mean, there's no way that, my family would get into this, nothing at all. I used to read a lot when I was young. So, I used to read a lot of mysteries by Agatha Christie.
Yeah, Agatha Christie.
And so there were a lot of French expressions here and there.
Yeah, because of Hercule Poirot, who is like a Frenchman.
So then I used to look up for those expressions in the dictionary, and they used to tell me that, okay, there's a French expression. So then I thought, okay, so why not, try my hands at French? Why not learn a new language? So that's when I approached Alliance Française. And that's when I started learning French while I was, doing my bachelor's and master's in French.
In commerce.
In commerce. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. So, why? I just want to understand. Did you have a plan when you began your BCom? Did you want to be an accountant, perhaps? Did you want to have a corporate job? What was the vision as far as life was concerned?
The initial plan was absolutely to get into a corporate, because I always saw myself in the corporate world out there. Okay. So that's why I chose this domain of commerce. Okay. But then, as we say, destiny has different plans for you, and automatically you are, turned towards the thing that destiny has decided for you. Yeah. And here I am.
Amazing. So you began in your first year of Bachelor's of Commerce. You began taking courses at Alliance Française Chandigarh. Mm-hmm. What was it like then, Alliance Française?
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. I think every student who came there was there simply for the reason of learning a new language, with no other objectives in mind that I would pursue something with this, or nothing at all. It was amazing there.
And you spent 3 years there.
3 years, that's right.
What kept you there? It's very difficult to do something outside of traditional schooling. It's easy to go to university and school because you're going to get a diploma and it's like the chosen path for everyone. But to do something that is so casual for such a long time, it must have done something for you that you were not getting in your normal education. What do you think that was?
So I was in the final year of my bachelor's when I started, and then I topped my level 1. Okay. And at that point of time, there was no DELF exam. Okay. There used to be another type of exam where all the students would come and take the exam together, and I think that's something that clicked. And I said, okay, I want to pursue it further. So, and then there was no stopping or looking back, So I continued with my master's in commerce, but at the same time, I continued doing French as well.
When you enrolled for your master's, was the idea still, oh, I'll study a little more and I'll join a corporate? Was that still the idea?
Absolutely, absolutely. Till I was taking my final exams, the idea was to join the corporate world. But that's when I got a call from Allianz saying that, well, you'll be completing your DELF B2 and soon you'll be enrolled in DELF C1. So we were thinking that if you want to come teach here with us. I said, no, I have absolutely no intentions of teaching, and I think teaching is not my cup of tea. Yeah. I absolutely want to work in the corporate world. And then they lured me in a bit and they said, well, till the time you find a job, so just come, teach one batch or two, and then it'll be easy. We're going to train you and everything. I said, okay. I told my family, and they said, well, you can always, till the time you get somewhere else, why not? So I remember the course coordinator there preparing the entire training program according to my exam schedule of master's second year. So that's how, I was trained. The training went on for like good 5 months. Okay. And that's when I got my first batch.
So they trained you for 5 months before you actually were allowed to teach?
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. So because I assume at the point you were still very raw and in your understanding. So, but typically that's the level at which teachers, like individuals, can think of start taking classes, teaching people French. B2, that's what you would say?
B2, but I was already, through with my C1 as well. So my next target was C2 actually.
Nowadays, there are a lot of benefits to learning French, right? I was thinking we'd cover just a few basics of it, and maybe talk a little bit about like the different levels, like A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, how they're different, and how people who are at these levels should aim to progress. Because I feel like a lot of people may be trying or may be thinking about trying to do French because of all the benefits. Like, so as far as legal status is concerned, right? French allows you to score additional points in the PR process, right?
That's right.
Are a lot of people in Allianz generally enrolled because of that reason?
Yeah, since a decade now, yes. Most of them, like 85% of our students, they all want to, go to Canada, yeah.
And because of the advantage that French gives them as far as the legal process is concerned.
They get more points, and then, the hourly rate of work changes if you have a certain level of French, for example, starting from B1, because A1, A2 are considered as the debutant levels, and B1 is the intermediate level where you can manage yourself. And then B2 and C1 is the advanced. Okay. B2 is the advanced level. C1 is very close to it's very advanced, and C2 is just like, natives, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of advantages to being bilingual, especially as far as job opportunities are concerned. So, if generally, like I know for a fact that if you want to get the points that you require in French, like if you want to get additional points for your PR process, you need to demonstrate at least B2 competency in
high B2, because they have two categories, yeah.
Yes, and in all skills, not just like B2 overall, but you need to have B2 in speaking, listening, writing, and
all the grammatical aspect, reading, writing, listening, speaking, everywhere.
How long do you think it takes someone who is completely like a novice, who has not been exposed to French at all, for someone like that to go in and give an exam, French B2, and get the required score for the PR?
Well, luckily now, we do offer the intensive programs. Right? When I was doing French, there was no intensive program. All programs were extensive. So that's why it took me like almost more than 2.5 years to complete my C1. But I would always suggest everybody to be patient enough, because a language is a slow process. You can never mug it up. So it takes time, and minimum 1.5 years, minimum. And that's when you are absolutely free, you have nothing else to do, you can really concentrate on French.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a long time, to be honest.
Because that's what mostly people do. Like whenever we have batches and people tell us they've quit their job just to focus on French.
To be honest with you, like I feel like I did it for a year. Maybe I did A2, I did B1, and I did B2.1. How many months is that? Is that 9 months?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's possible in here because I got B2 in nearly everything except
Speaking or writing.
yeah, I got B2 higher in writing, but I wouldn't say that I was doing just. But I would also say that I had exposure to French before. A couple of years before that, I had done A1, and I'd spent like a long time reading French on my own, watching French movies, listening to French songs. So I feel like maybe the reason why I think language can't be mugged up is because like it's a whole new brain network. It's like a whole new like brain structure, and that takes a little time. And maybe the foundation for it had already begun for me. But in your experience, 1.5 years is generally what is required.
Minimum, yeah.
And you're saying that for B1, for instance, this is what you would aim to have if you wanted to have an advantage as far as job opportunities were concerned. So maybe this is like something like a year?
Exactly, yeah, a year.
How do you? I love this common European framework of languages. It's so well designed. Can we talk a little bit about it? Like they describe it, right?
Sure.
Like so A1, A2, like there's supposed to be things that you can do when you're in these places, in these levels. I'm just very curious to understand like your understanding of it. Like how do you see these levels?
Okay, so the CECR framework that says in A1 and A2, you should be able to, do basic stuff like, understanding the directions or going to a grocery store, buying something, or just going, basic.
Communicating needs and wants.
Exactly. And then the moment you went to B1, that is the intermediate level, that's when you start managing yourself. I mean, you start managing on your own. Like with the level of French that you have, you can hold a bit of conversation, you can give your opinion, you can talk about certain things. And when you get to B2, that's when you can hold a debate. So that's why we call it the advanced level.
Because you're able to go back and forth on the fly.
And then when you get into C1, you're really there. Then you can, talk for hours.
I've heard like one of my favorite, like I think it's the IELTS framework is also kind of similar. They have like certain things that you should be able to do. Like I saw, I believe like for the levels beyond 7 and in the subjective modules, these levels are supposed to be like indicated by people who can talk about complex and abstract things such as spirituality and religion at these levels. And I thought that was such a crazy nuance because it is very difficult to talk about spirituality. It's so difficult to communicate things that are not completely straightforward.
That's what end of B2 and the beginning of C1 does to you. That's when you start talking about it, and you can hold long conversations there.
And you've been like we said, you started your journey with Alliance Française in your last year of bachelor's, and then it's been going on until now, right? But in the meanwhile, you've also been working as a French professor with the Fraser Valley, India. How did you first get exposed to Fraser Valley, India? I mean, it's the same city. I know Chandigarh is a small city, but if you can talk a little bit about that.
It's another story now, and I love talking about this too. So I was contacted by the then Associate Director of Fraser Valley, India, that is Mr. Kurneet Singh Anand. So he sent me a message on Facebook saying that, I work with Fraser Valley, India, and well, if you have time, just come and meet me. And at that point of time, I didn't know much about Fraser Valley, India. I had not heard about University of Fraser Valley at that point of time. So I ignored the message. And then I think 10 days down the line, again a message pops up. And there he convinces me to come and meet him at least once. So I said, okay, why not? The gut instinct said, why not? Let's go. And as we all know that he can convince somebody easily, so that's when he told me that, we want you to come and teach French here. So of course, there were little things here and there, and I told him I'm already working, at Allianz. So he said, well, you can easily give the contract to Allianz, but you are going to be here. That's it. So, well, the rest is history now. It's been 10 and a half years.
Lovely. And how has your experience been so far?
Amazing.
What do you enjoy about this work?
I always say that Allianz France is my first family, and my second family is Fraser Valley, India. I love being here. Everything. I mean, the way you treat your faculty, the way we are understood here. If I can use, we are also pampered at times, with amazing hospitality, the classrooms, everything, the infrastructure. And that made my journey beautiful here. And so much of exposure, we get to meet, so many delegates, diplomats, and it's a beautiful program that is structured for students here.
What is the role of French here in this university education? Why should, I mean, perhaps we can go at this question from a couple of different angles, but I'm just trying to understand what advantages does learning a new language offer a young teenager who's not yet crossed 20, and how should they view this experience?
So French is offered in the BA program, and for the BBA students, it's an optional course. So the moment a student does the basic course, that is French 101, and then we also offer French 102. So then their DELF A1, their level of CECR A1 is cleared. And after that, if they want to take the exam, of course they can. And so that's the beginning. And after that, of course, when they take a transfer to Canada, so they're going to see French everywhere the moment they land there. And every product they buy, everything. So then that helps them. And after that, they are going to apply for PR. So then that's the additional points that add up. And of course, if they have time, they can absolutely keep going in for A2, B1, B2.
Absolutely. But what I mean to say is like I've heard a lot about, how language helps, like more than the certifications and all of that experience, like the advantages that you get in critical thinking, in your ability to express yourself even in your native language. Like I was just thinking at it from a more academic standpoint. Like in your experience, have you witnessed, like as you've taught someone language, that they've just opened up, or like what is the process of transformation like as students learn a different language?
I think learning a different language means learning a different culture altogether. So your thinking perspective changes. You become more open to, accepting things. Because till now, you were in one culture, right? Now you're entering into the another one. So we understand their points, and then we become even more, open to certain things in our life. That exposes us to so much, actually. And then if you happen to, travel, that's where, I think the person changes completely, for good. For good, of course.
It's interesting we bring that up because after you're doing your master's in commerce and spending a little time teaching, you also did your certification for teaching French. I'm sorry, I don't.
Yes, absolutely. DEUFLEUR, that's right. But before that, I also did the Assistana program,
Right.
Wherein I went to France to be an assistant to the English language teachers there. So I was in the south of France in the beautiful city of Toulouse, which is the pink city of France, famous for because of the color of the the buildings is brick, so that's why they call it La Ville Rose. And of course, Toulouse is famous for the Airbus industry. So yeah, so I was there, and that's what brought a major change in my life. I feel that's when I changed as a person completely. The immense growth that happened at that point of time, the confidence boomed. I think that's something that I would say all our students should go in for. Travel as much as you can, and language. Learning a language opens up those doors for you.
100%. New opportunities in a world that you'd never considered. It's so crazy. When I started learning French, I discovered a new part of the internet, because there's a whole part of the internet that is in French. If you Google stuff in French, you get exposed to different websites. You get exposed to it's crazy. We live in such separate worlds, depending on the language that we use to interact with it. How long did you spend in Toulouse?
I was there for 7 months.
That's a long time.
It's a long time, and I chose to stay with a French family. There were options available, to rent an apartment or to stay on campus. But then I chose to stay with a French family because I absolutely wanted to understand and live the French way.
And what did you think about the French way?
Oh, that was the golden period of my life, actually, I love talking about that. And my French family was, it's my family now. So they came to India twice. And then, it started like, okay, I have to pay the rent every month and blah, blah, blah. And then it came down to having all the meals together. We were traveling together after that. Like almost every dinner used to be together. Either it used to be French or Indian.
This is called being an au pair, right?
No, au pair is a different concept wherein you have to take care of their kids. So that's that. So this is Hasistana. So wherein you become an assistant to the,
I'm saying the arrangement where you like the paying guest concept. Isn't there a French word for it as well? Like when you live with a French family.
This is like famille d'accueil.
Famille d'accueil. In English, we would say this: the family who welcomes.
Host family.
The host family. Yeah. Yes. Because accueil is like to welcome.
To welcome. That's right.
See, I didn't.
Do remember. Amazing. That's really good. I'm proud of you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm seeking validation from my teacher in a podcast. Very nice. Is there any particular memory that from this experience that really sticks out?
I think the students, because that was my first time, teaching international students. And I just realized that the mistakes that my students used to make in India learning French, they made the same mistakes learning English there. For example, a little example, the difference between the verbs to go and to come. So even in French, the students always have a difference, have a little confusion between, aller, venir, how to use it. And the same thing happened there. I was like, okay, so our students are pretty good. No problem at all.
I was actually hoping you would share the story that a coordinator, Grishta, was so fond of. She was saying that something about...
I actually learned how to cook there.
Okay.
Because before that, I never used to cook. And that's when, you have to do everything on your own.
Yeah.
And I used to call my mom and ask for the recipes. And then I used to cook everything for them, from bharta to chole bhature as well. And then they used to call their friends over and they say, okay, well, Neha, if you could, cook something Indian for them.
Very interesting. And then after doing I just want to reiterate that this assistant to the French program, this is available here in Chandigarh for most individuals who speak French at the B1 level, right? Who are graduates.
The time when I went for this program, we were just 14 from India, 14 assistants from India. Now, there are more than 150 assistants. You can imagine the way it has picked up this program. Most of our students in Alliance Française, they go in for this program after their B1, B2. Some of them are even into teaching or even into different professions altogether. But then they feel that, okay, 1 year, why not? It's like taking a sabbatical.
Yeah.
So,
But I think it's unfair to call it a sabbatical because, I mean, you get to learn so much, right? If you were to talk about your core learnings of being exposed to a culture like the French culture and spending time with people in France, what would those learnings be from those people and that culture?
and first of all, I would start with, breaking the stereotypes. So we all have those cliches in mind, and the French are very arrogant. They're very...
I've heard that French people are very rude. Like they tend to be extremely. They have high.
They're high-headed, or they wouldn't talk to you if you're not speaking in French to them, and blah blah blah. So what I learned, of course, I mean, I think the first thing I also want to say that I developed a lot of patience and tolerance when I was in France, because you are there with so many immigrants. There are people from Africa, from the continent of Africa. There are people from the Middle East, from everywhere, and that's when you realize that India is so huge that sometimes we don't see others, but then we'll be traveling in the same bus. So many other things, and which develop that notion of tolerance towards everybody, and that's when we realize that so many people from different ethnicities can reside, can coexist easily.
Yeah, despite their differences, despite their differences in style, in taste, in way of living.
In so many aspects. So many aspects.
Yeah, you would expect that when so many people from different cultures come together, that there'd be a lot of disputes. But human beings find a way to make peace with each other despite their differences.
True.
There is another stereotype. So, in your opinion, French people are not? They're not rude?
Oh, not at all.
Really?
Out of, 100 people if I met, 95 were amazing. And those 5, we would find them here as well, So I've had an amazing experience. And then slowly and gradually you realize that, look, every city works in a different way. Paris being the capital. So normally what happens is that everybody just wants to go and visit Paris, and they would say, well, I visited France. France is not just Paris. India is not just about Delhi.
100%. 100%.
So it's like that. So in Paris, it being the capital, everything is so fast. Life is so fast. People don't have time. So of course, over there, people would behave in a certain way. But the moment you decide to go and visit a different city, you would see, the real France there, the real French people there. And they're so good. Always there to help you, to understand and to tell about themselves. So it's very interesting because I had questions from my French family there. And I said, you people are just amazing. So I had that stereotype that in French are not good and blah, blah, blah. So they said, and another very, very interesting incident. So I was in train to Germany, and the regular officers came to check, the passport and everything. So one of the police officers, he asks me, are you 100% Indian? And I was like, what does this question mean? Of course I am. I was like, what kind of question? So he said, well, and he explained, he was there for a good 15 minutes. We chatted over there. And he says, well, the reason I'm asking you is that because, in France, 100% French, very less people are there now. Because it's a melting pot, People from different cultures, they come together. So the kids are half Indian, half French, half Italian, half French, half German. So for them, 100% being one nationality was something exotic now, and which was very, very, strange for me. What kind of question was that?
Yeah.
So So that's another thing that I learned over there, that, I mean, people from different cultures can live happily together. I mean, like, there's no problem.
I do have an observation of the French culture that I would be interested in your opinion about. They eat a lot of weird stuff, right? I know I'm not saying, I'm just thinking in terms of in relatively in comparison to the area in which they're located. Like, people in Africa eat crazier stuff for sure, but it's just French people eat like the escargot, like horse. They horses.
Horse is like pretty rare, because the horse meat is very, very strong.
Really? Have you had it?
Not at all. So that's the advantage of staying with French families, huh? So, and I have around 4 French families in different cities now. So every time you meet them, you would ask different questions, and it's beautiful to know their perspective about it.
Right.
So horse meat is rare. I mean, like, you would not find, normally French people having meat. So generally it would be like you said, escargot, the snails, So mainly the seafood,
That's
the oysters and the snails and everything. And then, of course, the beef and, I mean, that's regular. Rabbit, yes, turkey,
These are the French main ingredients. Like, this is the main source of their food. Nothing odder than the escargot.
The only thing odd was, I think I was in Auch, which is again in Auch is in south of France again. So very, very, very pretty small city there. So we were invited by a French over there, and somebody else had ordered tête de veau. So there was a calf's head.
A calf's head. The ove. Okay.
Yeah. Veau. So actually, in the plate, it was his head in the plate. And I was like, okay, this is a little too much to digest.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean,
To be honest with you, I don't find that odd. In Kenya, our watchmen, you butcher a goat, right, on Eid, right, and so you cook the body, the carcass, but you don't necessarily do something with the head. But back in Kenya, they would grill the head and just like sit with it and eat it like throughout the day. It was so odd because the person is just holding a skull and just scraping meat off of it and eating it throughout the day. But to be honest with you, I find the snail aspect of it. The snail is. How do you look at a snail and say, I'm going to eat that?
I have no clue because I've never had snail.
But it's a delicacy.
It is. I mean, commonly you would find it there, yeah.
And it's very similar in texture, I guess, to an oyster. So there is a logical, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
Blue cheese is another. Is blue cheese predominantly French? Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were doing a language trip in Vichy. So there we did the dégustation de fromage. So we took the students to a fromagerie, and they saw, how the fromage is made. So they served everybody with a beautiful platter of cheese, and I immediately developed a taste for cheese when I was in France. I mean, it didn't take me much. Maybe because my French family told me exactly, how to start. Maybe that's the reason, because they told me that you should always start with something which is mild, and then go for the other. And then even because I was working with the Hotel Management Institute, so that worked in my advantage. So they also taught me that how to go about doing this. And that's when I tasted the blue cheese for the first time. I would say yes, the smell was quite pungent. It was not easy, but I didn't feel bad. So when I saw the other students throwing it away, I said, please don't throw it. I would take it.
So generally, when you say that you should begin, like when you have a cheese platter, you should begin with the milder flavors. What is the milder flavor? Cheddar?
Cheddar, chèvre, so which is mild, made with goat's milk or simply cow's milk. Let's start with that first. So, and then of course, it goes.
Very interesting. What were you doing with the Hotel Management Institute?
I was teaching English there. So
Okay.
that's when.
That was when you were working as an assistant friend. Okay, assistant teacher, assistant to the English teacher. I'm sorry. And then you also have experience working with the University of Fraser Valley, that is located in British Columbia, and that is a partner institute with Fraser Valley, India. Can you talk a little more about your experience there and how it got started?
Sure. For that, well, I have to say a big thanks to the then course coordinator, which was Mrs. Dilmeet Kaur Anand. So I was relatively new. It was just like a year old. And that's when the faculty meet was held, and the Dean of Arts, Dr. Jacqueline Nolt, was invited. And then she said, Neha, make it to the meeting. Even when I had classes in Allianz, and my class finished at almost 9:30, and I said, your meeting would be over because the meeting started at 9, and I reached at around 10. And that's when I got to sit just next to Dr. Jacqueline Nolt. And just towards the end, when Dilmeet introduced me, so she asked me, okay, so you're teaching French, and have you ever been to France? So I talked to her about my experience, how I was teaching English there and everything. And then they said, have you ever been to Canada? I said, no, not yet. She said, would you love to, visit Canada? I was like, absolutely, given a chance, why not? And this was in the month of October. And in December, when I was writing to my course coordinator there, I was sending my course outline. And that's when she sends me an email saying that, well, Neha, we have awarded you a scholarship to be a research scholar with us for 2 weeks. So you're being invited. And I didn't know how to react, what to do, because I read the mail like 5 times. And that's when I came and talked to the director and the academic coordinator here. And they're very happy about this fact. So, and then I went there. It was a beautiful experience. They were very, very welcoming. And during lunch, in fact, the first day when I was there, so the teachers over there said that, Neha, why don't you co-teach with us as well? I mean, apart from, being the research scholar. I said, well, I would love to. And then I went in their classes, co-taught, observed also. I went also to the Russian class, Spanish class, just to see how they
How they were teaching, yeah.
I was beautiful. The students were great. I loved teaching them. And some of the teachers asked me to do a presentation on India. So that's when I talked about Pondicherry, because that's the Francophone place in India. So, and they were really very curious to know about that. They asked me a couple of questions, very, very serious, very motivated in the class, the students were. So I love that experience.
For people who are considering, going to the University of Fraser Valley through Fraser Valley, India, and they may have some, questions or concerns about the place. What was your experience like in Abbotsford? What do you think of the university and the campus? And
I love the campus.
Yeah.
And more than the campus, I love the people there. I mean, ready to help. There were so many teachers who volunteered to show me around. And, when one of them invited me to their place, so I got the experience of like the real family over there, talking to them and talking to them about India, because they were staying in the Indian neighborhood in, I think they were in Surrey, I guess. So I was like, normally the Indian families are there, but then what's your experience of staying there? It was amazing. It was amazing. I think every student, I'm sure that our students are very lucky to be, a part of this program.
Amazing. If we can move to your experience as a author, I'm very curious. What made you decide that you would want to write books, and that too in French?
Well, the first break of getting this title of author started with Fraser Valley, actually. So we had a training program organized in India wherein Dr. Mary Jean Sodderly was invited to do a course on e-portfolio, which I also taught after that. And so over there, I think something happened maybe in the question answer round or in an assignment wherein I talked about my experience of France, and then she said, would you write that down? You know, do you want to be like, do you want to write that in a book? Well, the idea of contributing to a book started from there. So my first chapter was in her book. And after that, so I was doing a training program in Indore. I was training teachers over there. And so the director of Langers was there as well. And after I think the training program went pretty well. So while having dinner, so he came up with this idea. He said, why don't you write a French book? I was like, well, I never thought of it till now. I mean, writing a French book for school kids. And that's when I realized it's so easy to criticize any book that we teach, but then to write one, and so that's how it started. And it was December 2022 that the idea came up. And we started working on it in the month of April. And by October, we were ready. So in Jan 2024, the books were launched. The series of the book was launched for grade 6, 7, and 8. And it has been an overwhelming experience. So many, almost 60 above schools have taken it up here. There's certain schools in Sri Lanka who've ordered now, and they've reached Middle East. So yeah, it's a very, very humbling experience, actually.
That's lovely. And this is a workbook mainly?
There's a book and workbook.
Okay. So in the book, there are stories as well?
Well, it's like, teaching French in schools. So for grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8.
So like the cosmopolite that we use for our announcements. So it's just like compilations of like articles and things that you would find.
There are chapters, there are grammatical aspects, there are cultural aspects. Then there is examination preparation. So it's like that, yeah.
That's very interesting. What was the process like for you compiling this book?
It was beautiful, but of course, we burnt the midnight oil, like I was working till 8 p.m. and then, from 9 to 2 in the morning, it was,
Working on the book.
Working on the book. And because we had signed the confidentiality bond, so we were not, supposed to talk about it. So nobody could know that I'm doing it, but I had to do it. So, but you learn so much. That's when you realize that, look, I have to be very, very particular about everything that I do, even where to put a full stop, where to put a slash, or a simple thing that, in India, I cannot talk about this cultural aspect, because I'm talking about schools. There's going to be taught in schools. There's so many things that come up, because till now I was dealing with Alliance Française, wherein, we are teaching adults, adolescents, yes, sometimes, corporates. And in Fraser Valley, India, again, we're dealing with adults. But here I was dealing with school kids, especially in India.
I've always been, I think it's very admirable that you do so much. You do Alliance Française and you do it well. And then you come here and you do Fraser Valley, India, and then you go and write your books and work on, with these other organizations, helping people, helping schools plan curriculums and creating books for French language. I want to be able to do more in life. And I just want to know, how do you find the energy? Is it a struggle, or is it something that just comes naturally to you?
What a wonderful question, Anmol, actually. And this is something that I tell all my friends and all my students, whoever asks me this question. Then you have to love what you do. That's the number one thing. So I love what I do. I look forward to every day, going to work. Of course, there are ups and downs. There are days when you just don't want to do anything. You want to break. But then still, and consistency is another thing that, you have to be consistent in what you do. Because nowadays what happens is we do something and we want the rewards. No. It might come for someone, but not for everyone. I can just guarantee one thing, that consistency leads you towards success. And then the third very important element is being honest to your work. I mean, you have to do it honestly. There are no shortcuts. No shortcuts at all. I mean, all this, I know when people say, oh, you're so lucky, you've done this. And it's like, well, more than luck, it was hard work, that you've put in, because that's not seen. What's seen is like the result. So a lot of consistency, a lot of hard work, a lot of honesty goes in. Of course, there are times when you are pulled back or pulled down, but then you have to get up and move forward and keep doing your work. And that's what people see. I mean, like, we feel that people don't see, but everybody recognizes, everybody sees what you're doing at the end of the day. If you're not doing your work well, that is also seen. If you're doing it well, it might be seen a bit late, but then it is seen for sure. And also take up every opportunity that comes your way. Because normally what happens is an opportunity comes and I would start discussing it, with so many people. Somebody would say, take it. Somebody would say, don't take it. I would say, trust your gut instinct. Go in for it. It works. You learn. It doesn't work. You still learn. So I think taking all the opportunities is very, very important. The opportunities don't come easy, but once they come, please go in for it.
Beautiful. And maybe we can end with one final note of why you think Fraser Valley, India is a good place for a student to do their undergraduate study. What do you think we offer that other places don't?
Well, the first thing is a lot of positivity and good vibes. Because it's very important wherever you're going to learn or going to work, especially for the students, who are at the age of like 16, 17. It's a beautiful place. Please come. It's a lovely place to be. It's positive, and then it prepares you for your next journey. So, and then of course it is cost effective. So rather than going there directly and doing all those years and paying so much, I mean, over here they pay 1/10 of the cost.
Yeah, we can students save up to 60%.
Exactly. And then, we have been trained to provide the same environment to them, to train them in terms of discipline, in terms of punctuality. So, for example, every class is counted. So then the student is obliged to be present rather than, bunking classes. And punctuality is developed because, like, till the time we are marking the attendance, if you're there in the class, very good. If not, sorry, the door is closed. And that helped really when our students went to France. So in France, everywhere, everybody, this is again that cliche that, okay, Indians can never be punctual. And I remember in Rouen, in Alliance Française Rouen, they were like, all these students are Indian? I said, yes, why? Because if their class was at 10, by 9:50, everybody used to be there. There's like, this is the first time we've had Indian students who are so punctual. So that helped. And that's because they got the training in Fraser Valley, India. We started doing that over here.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your sharing your stories and your knowledge.
Thank you for having me here. It was a sheer pleasure. Thank you.